What happened in Iowa today? Probably a lot. Hey, I'm Megan McKinney. It can take a while to follow all of the news, but it doesn't have to. Have you tried Here First? It's a daily news podcast from Iowa Public Radio, part of the NPR network. It's your quick stop for Iowa news, culture, and community. Listen where you get your podcasts.
This is Garden Variety, a horticulture podcast from Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm Charity Nebbe. We've had a couple of big freezes, and insects aren't likely to be too much of a presence outside in the coming weeks, but you may experience more insect encounters inside your home. Today, we'll talk about some uninvited house guests of the creepy crawly persuasion. Entomologist Zach Shum is director of the Iowa State University Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic. He is here today. Hello, Zach.
Good morning.
And now, Zach, this happens every year. What is going on?
Like clockwork, every single year, every single fall, and occasionally we see upticks in the spring too, just increases in numbers of insects that are coming into our homes, kind of annoying us, being what we call an urban nuisance in the entomology world. So essentially when these temperatures start to cool, a lot of these insects need somewhere to go for overwintering. Some insects migrate away, others have to stay in this area where it's really cold, and any kind of nice protected structure that can help them overwinter and make the journey until next spring is good for them. And our houses just so happen to be plopped right in the middle of insect habitat. The insects are the ones that not that we're not talking about some non-native species today, but insects are the things that have already been here. We've plopped our homes right in their habitat, and they like our homes to overwinter too.
All right, yes, we do make our homes nice and cozy, and those of us who live in older homes probably have more cracks and crevices that insects can get in, right?
Exactly. So the more cracks and crevices you have, old windows or old door thresholds, vent covers or window screens that are damaged or old, those are going to increase the amount of insects that are allowed in just because there's more cracks. Insects are really tiny. They don't need much space. So yeah, older homes, we tend to see more influx of insects getting indoors in the end. But certainly they can get into all homes because they're very creative. And again, they're very small.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the different species that we do tend to see inside. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of all of the insects you might find in your house. But I want to start with cluster flies. And I will admit that when cluster flies are in my old farmhouse, I'm not squeamish, but they kind of freak me out because I think, oh no, what have I done wrong? What's going on in my house that these giant flies appear? So tell us about cluster flies.
Cluster flies are an interesting one. So to the general populace, they're just going to look like a black-colored, dark-colored housefly. They don't look much different than the normal, quote, fly that we see flying around. But they tend to be one of the ones that come inside in the fall. And really, again, what they're doing, like the rest of them, is looking for overwintering habitat. And that tends to be in attic spaces, wall voids, things of that nature, getting in the same way all the other ones do, just through cracks and crevices and vent screens and windows that have damaged screens, things of that nature. So these are ones that, interestingly, we see pop up in more exposed locations. So the stereotypical situation is a house sitting on top of a hill or an exposed area where there's not many other buildings or structures around. So they're flying to these locations, often from long distances, and just making it inside like the rest of them. They tend to be associated with attics, but they trickle down into living spaces. So you can find them in bedrooms and first floors and essentially whatever your top living floor of your structure is.
But they're not breeding in my house.
That's correct. They're not reproducing in your house, and that's the same with all the insects that we're going to talk about today. They're just using it for overwintering. Someplace to stay protected and a little bit warmer during the winter. The things that they do in nature is they are earthworm parasites. So the adults will mate. They'll be outside. They'll lay their eggs in the soil. Those little larvae, you can call them maggots in the case of flies, I suppose. They are going to find earthworms, parasitize them, and that's how they reproduce. So they don't really care about humans. They're not harmful to people. They're not harmful to homes, and that's really the case with everything we're talking about today. They're just an annoyance. They're going to be temporary. You'll maybe see an influx in the fall. They'll drop down a little bit in the middle of winter, and then you might see some again when they try to make it outside in the spring. Unfortunately, a lot of them are just not smart enough to make it back outside all the time.
All right, but there are not maggots in my house. That's when I see the cluster flies, I'm like, oh no. Okay, let's talk about the Asian ladybird beetle, because this is another invader that has become incredibly common.
Sure. So the Asian ladybird beetle is a non-native species. There are many native ladybugs out there, or ladybirds, whatever you want to call them. And they, again, are doing the same thing. We're going to kind of be repetitive today because they're just coming indoors to look for overwintering sites. A lot of times, at least growing up, for me, we had siding that could peel back, that sort of vinyl plastic siding. We would often get these aggregating, like forming these big piles of ladybugs. You could peel back some of that siding, and there would just be thousands of ladybugs behind it. But certainly some of those are making their way all the way indoors, too. Sometimes they'll just get behind siding and never make their way into wall voids or things of that nature. But same thing. These are a little bit smaller than the cluster flies, so they could probably squeeze through some smaller gaps. But they're also going to be hanging out in attic spaces, behind walls. And a lot of individuals notice that they are congregating or flying near windows. And essentially what they're doing there is trying to make it back outside. They're trying to go to that light source, maybe on a warmer day outside or something like that. They just can't make it back outside. So another one that's just going to be a nuisance. They're not harmful to people, although they can bite. And I experienced my first Asian ladybird beetle bite last year when my hands were full and I couldn't move it off of my arm. Not that, I'm biased and I didn't care that it was there anyway, but I was like, oh, look, they do bite. But they're not going to draw blood. They might leave a little mark, but they're not going to be overly harmful to people other than a quick little nibble. So,
and I'm avoiding asking you how to manage these populations. I'm saving that for the end because there is a lot of repetition when we talk about what to do when these invaders come into our homes. The box elder bug is one that a lot of us encounter. I've always had a weak spot for box elder bugs. I used to try to keep them as pets when I was a little girl. So I kind of think they're fun. I think I might be among very few people who feel that way about them. But we do see a lot of them in the fall. Tell me about box elder bugs.
So box elder bugs are associated with box elder trees. So they're kind of related to maples, in the same genus as maples, at least. And so they're only feeding on that host plant. So a lot of individuals that have box elder nearby, you're more likely to have box elder bugs. Some of these insects, too, I can note, we see them aggregating kind of on our siding outside, especially on sunny sides of homes. And that's often them just trying to get the warmth from that solar radiation that's hitting your house. So they can be really active in those sides of the house that are getting a lot of sunlight. And again, doing the same thing, just making their way indoors. But I tend to not see this one actually make its way indoors as some of the other ones do. None of these insects really have a desire to be in our homes necessarily. It's just that they're finding that overwintering habitat. They don't really care about us at all. But yeah, that one's just associated with box elder.
Right. And sometimes they'll like coat the outside of one of your walls in kind of a startling way. Those are the calls that we get. Somebody saying, the entire side of my house is covered in these bugs.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So they can form really large aggregations. And I'll note with this one and probably the next one we're going to talk about too, that they can release aggregation pheromone, we call it. So they can release a pheromone. A couple of the insects find a location that's kind of nice to them for overwintering. They can release these aggregation pheromones, which can go out into the environment and have all the other ones be like, ooh, let me go to that source.
Let's hang out.
And that's how you end up getting these giant piles of insects that are on your siding and potentially inside your home too.
So, and people freak out when they see this giant aggregation of box elder bugs or really any other insects. If you've got a bunch of box elder bugs on the outside of your house, is that actually a problem?
I would argue no. I mean, other than for some people it's very unsightly and it's kind of disturbing and concerning, they're not going to be damaging to your home. They don't bite people. The only thing that they're going to be is a nuisance, potentially. Like yourself, I tend to think that they're kind of cool looking. The building that my office is in this time of year, it's just covered on warmer days on the windows because it has a lot of glass panels on the outside of the building. I find them interesting and they don't annoy me. So at most, a little bit of an annoyance, but they're gonna die down at some point. They're gonna dip in numbers. They're just a temporary thing. You can either ignore them or at most sweep them off.
Right. All right. And brown marmorated stink bugs are the last insect that we're really going to focus on. And you are a bona fide expert in brown marmorated stink bugs. Zach, you wrote your entire master's thesis, 200 pages about these insects?
Don't remind me. So yeah, what a thing to be an expert on, a tiny little brown insect that everybody hates. But yeah, so they're kind of similar to box elder bugs. They're in the same what we call an order, so they have similar mouth parts, similar ways that they feed on plants, similar aggregation pheromones even. So they even look a little bit different. They're kind of the same. They look shield-shaped, generally speaking, just that box elder bugs are a little bit more brightly colored with the red and orange. Brown marmorated stink bug, as the name implies, they are pretty much solid brown with a little bit of peppering on them with gray and black. So these are considered an urban nuisance in Iowa. In other states, particularly in the Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and Pacific Northwest, they're much more of an agricultural pest as well, which is where I did a lot of my work when I was at University of Delaware and at Utah State, where I did my master's. But in Iowa, we tend to see really spotty populations of them. Either people don't have any idea what they are, or people email and say, there's dozens of these on my house and getting into my house this winter. So kind of a mix. We've only had a couple of inquiries this year where they've had dozens of them getting inside their home. So you either see a bunch of them or you see none of them. And that might be the case for indefinitely or forever. So
well, in going through this list, cluster flies and box elder bugs are native insects. Asian ladybird beetles and brown marmorated stink bugs are invasive species, right?
Correct. Yeah. At the very least, not native. Yes.
All right. And
invasive is a very loaded term.
Okay. And of course, a lot of people, when they see an insect somewhere where it's not supposed to be, their first reflex is to squish. The brown marmorated stink bug, how much do they stink if you do that?
I would argue not much, but I'm also biased because I've handled so many thousands of them that I kind of enjoy the smell at this point. It's like nostalgia. It's like going into an old basement and being like, wow, I love this. So I'm a little biased. I don't think they smell that bad. So a lot of people, they smell really herby. It just smells like crushed herbs to some. Other people think it's outright disgusting. So it's not super strong necessarily, but that it's very distinct.
Okay.
They can leave, if you grab them too, they can leave a little staining on your hands. So that's what some people are more concerned about. So I don't know. I don't think it's that severe, but certainly noticeable.
All right. So I've left you 30 seconds to talk about how to deal with these insects in your home. As you mentioned, you can sweep them up and just toss them outside. What are some of your other recommendations in 20 seconds?
This is really easy in 20 seconds. The best thing that you can do is seal up your house as best as you can. New window screens, door sweeps, seal foundation cracks, things of that nature, vent screens. That's the best thing you can do is exclusion. If they get indoors, a simple vacuum is the best thing you can do. We never recommend spraying indoors, even outdoors, for any of these insects.
Entomologist Zach Shum, he is director of the Iowa State University Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic. For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. Garden Variety is a production of Iowa Public Radio and Iowa State University Extension. It's produced by me, Erin Stile, Caitlin Troutman, and the Iowa Public Radio talk show team. For more garden goodness, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Just go to iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. See you next time.